everybody. Dr. Roseanne here. You know that I don't have a lot of guests. I'm really excited to bring my friend and colleague on, Angela Powell, and we are talking about coming out of a crisis and survival mode and getting the right resources for your child. This is a super relevant and important conversation because the U.S. Surgeon General just released some survey research last week. And it says that 40% of parents are so overwhelmed that they feel immobilized. And I know that's the Stress in America survey that comes out by this American Psychological Association every year. The 2023 research says that 70% of parents feel very highly stressed and overwhelmed. So, and when you have a kid that's wired uniquely, wired differently, neurodivergent, neurospicy, whatever you want to call it. But we got a kid that's different, right? Which is much more normal than having a neurotypical kid. We experience a lot more stress because we struggle to find the right resources. But this is why I'm really excited because Angela is the co-founder of Mad Charlie Inc. And it is essentially, I'll let her explain what it is, but it's a place for parents to get resources. So welcome, Angela. Tell us a little bit about Mad Charlie Inc. And I don't know if you want to start with how you met me, because that's a funny story. But but tell us about Mad Charlie Inc. and what it represents. We're going to go back and talk more about it, but I'd love for people on a high level to understand what it is.
Well, and I love that because I believe that talking about why we became Mad Charlie Inc. is the perfect lead into how I met you. So Mad Charlie Inc. was founded in 2021 by myself and my husband after we had experienced a couple of things that we just felt were not acceptable, right? And when I say a couple, 9 years of really unacceptable experiences that kept our family in crisis and survival mode with our child. And the reason that we were in crisis and survival mode is because we weren't seeing the curious, credentialed people, and that's how we refer to our credentialed village. And that could be, people that I've worked with personally. It could be people that I haven't worked with personally, but I just find them to be extraordinary. And what is special about that, I think, is that coming into this as a parent, sitting down in the chair opposite of a practitioner to talk about your struggles at home, to talk about your struggles with your child, you don't feel empowered in that space. A lot of the time you feel like you need to clench up and close up and give as little information as possible, or that you're not capable of providing the information that they're going to need. And you expect them to be the experts that are going to help you resolve the problem. And when that doesn't happen, you become less and less confident about yourself as a parent.
Isn't that the truth, Ange?
It is,
like,
absolutely.
It's so true. And, we hold, particularly when you go to a physician, and it could be a therapist, but, when we find what we think is somebody that's going to help us, we have a lot of expectations, right? We think, well, this is going to help lessen these symptoms, or, and things are going to get better for my kid and my family, whatever is going on. And when that doesn't happen, or sometimes things get worse, it makes the next choice, we lose our own mother intuition. We lose that, oh my gosh, we lose hope. And it's not acceptable.
And that was the hardest part for me. The hardest part for me was feeling as though I couldn't bring joy to my home. And It was awful. And I had, we had a close community. So our youngest son is neurodistinct, neurodivergent, neurospicy, however we want to phrase that, whatever you're comfortable with. Our older son is neurotypical. They're 8 years apart. It's like raising two only children. And we have a 22-year-old who is also neurodistinct, neurospicy, neurodivergent, however you want to phrase it, but it added trauma to that. So there's there's also that acquired neurodivergence portion of it from the trauma. We took custody of him when he was 17. We had a very short amount of time to bring him to a place of understanding that being loved is a good thing and that people are not going to leave you. And so
and that your home is safe.
And that our home is safe. So we were up against a lot, and we did not have curious, credentialed people to help guide us. So, obviously when your home is in chaos, our older son, now 20-year-old, he started to experience anxiety. He started to experience depression, going through these things in middle school and high school and not understanding why the home is in chaos, and we couldn't fix it. We couldn't fix it, and it was awful. And we thought we were alone in it until another musician, my husband's a musician, another musician that my husband was playing with one night was not behaving as himself. And after the show, my husband approached him and, asked him if everything was okay. And he said, no, everything's not okay. My son, who at the time, both of our sons were 10 years old, fourth graders. He said, my son was taken from us today by Department of Children's Services, picked up from school, and taken to Memphis. And we're not allowed to see him for 3 days. And they have him drugged. They just put him on medication. And
so scary, Angela.
It was a situation where the school, we were in two different school districts. Our school district did offer supports. They initiated supports. Their school district did not. Their school district initiated a means to get the kid out of the school without bringing support to the family. So it was two very different experiences. And we had multiple, picnics with this family. We had them over to our house multiple times. We didn't see each other frequently, but we were close enough that how did none of this ever come up when we had our families together? We had no idea they were going through the same struggles that we were going through. And because of the lack of support and education, it was more compounded for them. And because they were both working parents, I was a stay-at-home mom. It was more compounded for them. They had even less resources because the two biggest the biggest resource we have is time.
Right.
When you're limited on time, your resources are, a fraction of what, they should be.
And unfortunately, these kind of things happen a lot and people are too ashamed to talk about it. Right. And,
Absolutely.
I have had so many physicians that actually bring their kids to me. And I recently had Dr. Aaron Hartman and, on an episode, and he adopted these wonderful special needs, kids, and his first child, Anna, had cerebral palsy. And he talked about how they made an informed decision to do something different. And that even as a physician, Child Protective Services was called on them because they chose a different path, which actually helped change the trajectory of her entire life. She's a young adult now. And so it's very scary to push back. And I thought it was so brave of him to share that because that is a sad reality. And we, get worried about that people are going to, remove our child or think badly of us, or we're going to not do the right thing. And it's very hard when we're seeking guidance that we don't get the right guidance. And I love that you call them curious professionals, right?
Curious, credentialed people.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've gotten to a point, and it's not in any disrespectful way. I don't believe that any practitioner, any expert goes to school for years and years and years, collects the debt that comes with education for years and years and years, and doesn't come into it with, some type of, altruism and passion for that field. I think what happens is that we have a system that was built broken, that hasn't been changed yet. We're looking at change. We're definitely moving in the right direction. But it's a system that's been built broken. And our educators and our providers tend to become overwhelmed and discouraged, and they lose faith in why they started doing what they're doing. And then they're not able to properly serve families.
You talk about curious professionals, right? And here's the thing, right? All of us degreed people, we're all smart. It's not a matter of intelligence. It's a matter of your willingness to keep pushing yourself, to keep learning. And that's what you talk about curiosity, right? I have my Google alerts set to my research. I review my research every day. I'm staying on top of things. I seek out new information, right? And that is important because, it takes, decades for new information to get to the masses. And we need to stay on top of research that we're providing in all of our fields, the best service that we can to the people that we support. And I think that's what's different. Then they're going to I'm not saying you shouldn't go to very traditional conferences, but you tend to get the same people, the same stale information, there. And, cutting edge information is as important as the research builds around it. Right. But for sure, I think it's so hard for parents. I think when you talk about change, being this is my third decade, right? I think the thing that is changing things is parents. And parents are pushing back because the rise of neurodivergence, the rise of kids with medical issues like eczema and severe allergies and celiac, all these things are making parents be the curious ones. They're the ones driving this. And I think that's incredible,
It is
but I wish they
incredible,
had
but
a safer space to talk about this. Like they say that I forget what the statistics are, like 70% of parents are using complementary things. They call it CAM, called complementary alternative medicine, but only 11% are talking about it with their doctor.
absolutely. That is absolutely true. And we've been that family as well.
Yeah.
Um, and it is I want to go back to the conversation that you did have, the podcast you released with Dr. Hartman, because I just listened to that recently. It was just released, so
Yeah.
and I'm doing a second listen because there were so many things that resonated with me in that. That I want to bring forward for families. So for Mad Charlie Inc., it's really, really simple. We're going to let the credentialed village know that number one, yes, it does take some intelligence to get those credentials behind your name, but anybody can go to college, anybody can go to school, and anybody can get a credential. It's how you use that credential. It's how you use those credentials that matters. And so we want to challenge all of the credentialed village to do their best with it. And if that means having to take a step back from a system that is driving you into the ground, that's what it means. Take a step back from that system, because I'm going to call you out and I'm going to tell you and I'm going to challenge you. And I encourage all parents to challenge any credentialed person who is not listening to them, who is not paying attention to their lived experience. Because there's a reason that there's millions and millions and millions of different types of self-help books, right? Because there's millions of different ways to tackle this. There's so many different ways to create growth. There's so many different ways to learn a new thing. There's not just one. If there was
That's
just
right.
one way, we would have one self-help book. That's it. We would just have one. But that's not how it works. And the same thing applies when it comes to medicine and the human body. And the same thing applies when it comes to the brain, especially the brain, because we still have so much to learn about the body and the brain and the way it's connected. And so that's what we've done. We have challenged the curious credentialed people. And then all of this information that we're gathering, we want to bring it to the families who need it, because
And you're doing it in a really cool way right now, because you're going to be, besides the organization, you're actually going to do this conversational course series, which you can go to madcharlie.com, madcharlieinc.com, or any social Mad Charlie Inc. So at Mad Charlie Inc. to register. But you're bringing these credentialed people that really are bringing value and information that for families to take action on. Talk to a little bit about it, because I'm in it.
You
And
are
I'm
in
doing
it.
a
I'm
rethinking
still,
ADHD series.
you know, there's so much that I would love to say to any family that's listening, is that what is special about me? I don't have any credentials. My credentials are MOM, and we hit rock bottom. Our family was falling apart. We did not know how to serve our son. We did not know how to parent him. And there was so much grief in that, grief over the fact that I couldn't make my family happy, grief over the fact that we were losing our community, grief over the fact that we couldn't, you know, and anger and frustration over the fact that we couldn't find answers. And it seemed like everything that we were told to do led us down another rabbit hole of crisis and survival, instead of pulling us out. So the conversational course is called Conquering the Maze ADHD. We're starting with ADHD and we're going to go through all of it. What's interesting, we launched on social media, and we launched a website where you can reach out to Mad Charlie Inc., which is just ultimately reaching out to myself and my husband, to share lived experience and say, okay, well, we have found these resources to be really helpful. So let's point you in that direction. Because sometimes for us, from our experience, it was three things. I had to learn to be really, really vulnerable. And that was hard. It is hard to be vulnerable. So learning to be really, really vulnerable, but vulnerable with power, because nobody's going to use that vulnerability against me. We're going to use it to help me grow so that I can help my family flourish. Being vulnerable is so important.
And being vulnerable means you're sharing your story.
Sharing your story, your experiences. Everybody's experience is worth sharing. We are all experiencing this in a different way. We may be experiencing similar things, but we're experiencing it in a different way.
And we need more MOMs talking about this, because
and DADs. We need dads talking about it. We need caregivers
talking about it. We need more parents talking about it, because there's still a lot of stigma and shame.
Absolutely.
And fear. I mean, I think fear drives a lot of, you know, people not wanting to talk about things, you know, and I just think it's so, whenever I bring somebody on that's like you, and, you know, you're a parent of somebody who's had challenges and needs, it's really impactful, because I think the hardest part, I can tell you, I mean, there's a lot of hard parts, but I think that one of the hardest parts is the feeling of being alone, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And having nobody to turn to, and not knowing what to do next. So, you know, when you hear another voice, it's so important.
And that space starts, for us, it started with the fact that, you know, we couldn't give our family and our friends, the people that were closest to us, a 30-second soundbite to appease them in how much information they want about what we're going through, without getting an onslaught of feedback that was loving. Nobody came at us in a negative space, but the feedback you get is, have you tried this? Well, maybe if you stopped that. And it's just an assault on you as a person and you as a parent.
Yeah.
And nobody recognizes that that's what's happening. I didn't even recognize, my husband didn't recognize that that's what was happening as it was happening, but you slowly back out the door of your circle. And you're standing there by yourself. You're not having those same conversations with your friends and your family that you were having before, because you're still trying to figure out what's going on. And really what we need is, we need our families to jump in. And I want to say this because I want to go into how we met, because this is what really Mad Charlie was all about, was us not only wanting to create community, to set an example of what vulnerability can look like. For us, it's going to be different for every family, but this is what it looks like for us. It's us getting out and saying, this has been really hard. I didn't know how to manage this. I couldn't find the right people. And this is what, you know, this is what we went through. What's your story? So it's about creating those connections. So what's your story? How has this been for you? But it's finding all of these really incredible people who are creating something or building something to actually help families thrive. These are the most passionate people like you. And you know, it's funny because my husband's in the music industry, and one of the big like, just don't name drop. Name dropping's yucky. Ugh, don't name drop. Mad Charlie Inc. is all about name dropping. I want to name drop Dr. Roseanne. I'm going to name drop Megan Champion from Mothers Together. You can find her at On the Hard Days, because she has a support group that I've been a part of for 2 years. That's incredible. I'm going to name drop Catherine Witcher from Master IEP Coach, because man, did I walk into my meetings differently after I took her course. I'm going to name drop Wiz Therapy, Hebe Health, Mariah Choate. Mariah Choate has only been on the scene for a year. She was and I found her on Instagram, and I reached out to her, and I just said, hey, I want to know more about where you came from and what you want to do. Like, what are you all about? Like, can we have a conversation? And she said, yes. And it's been a rocket ship since then. But she was a school psychologist in a really tough district, and she watched some of the real ugly that happens inside these schools. And when, she's a mother of 2 under 2, so she stopped working, and she started creating resources to help families navigate that. So these are the people we're seeking out. We were at a conference in last summer in 2024, and it was for a homeschooling disabilities expo, and you were a speaker there, and you actually had, I think, 3 sessions that you did there. So you did a lot of work there for a lot of families. And your first title of your first session, the title had to do with dysregulation. I was like, boom, that's for me. That's the first one I'm going to. That's where I need to be. And
they had to roll in all those extra chairs, remember?
Oh my God, it was crazy. There were people lining the walls.
They were sitting on the floor, It was awesome. It was great. Lovely human beings.
There was so much that happened in that room in that first session. I ended up going to all 3 of your sessions. And I wouldn't even be able to count how many times I stopped at your booth. I don't know. I was like totally fangirling over you.
And we know the same people. So all of a sudden we realized we knew the same people. It was pretty awesome.
Which is crazy, because, you're on the East Coast, I'm in the South, and we're here in this, random
in a different
location.
place, and we know the same people. That's how the world works, right?
It was incredible. But I sat and I listened to you speak. And as you were talking, I'm on my phone, like looking up all of everything about you. Like, I am going into a deep dive of who you are. I'm finding everything. I'm marking the pages. And when it was done, I just sat there, because I don't think in my lifetime, for gathering education, for gathering information, have I ever been in a space where, and people say, well, I had that light bulb moment. I had that light bulb moment. That was an aha moment. It wasn't that. It was lightning strike after lightning strike. You were feeding me so much. You were feeding my soul as a mother with this information. And I thought, wow, this is incredible. How have I not known about her? Where has she been? How have I not known about her? And so I waited. You had a very long line of people waiting to talk to you. I mean, I didn't even go to the second session that I had set myself up to go to. I waited until the very last person left that room, and I walked up to you, and I was just absolutely thrilled to meet you in person. And quite honestly, I can't even believe that I'm sitting here on your podcast, because such a fan of it.
For sharing that. It's so awfully sweet. And just know as a person, as a practitioner, so many people send me messages, and please keep them coming. It's just you saying that, is why I do what I do, because we do need really accurate, practical information. And that's what I try to do. And I'm so grateful that I got to know you. You're like a super fan that I'm always excited. And, and it was so funny, because you told me you sat there, like you said, and stalked me. And in the next one, you raised your hand and you were like, and she is the best Pinterest account. We'll never talk about my Pinterest on the show. And just like anybody, honestly, we pour so much love into our Pinterest. And so many people are finding me on Pinterest, but it is actually my number 1 place that I'm rocking it. So, if you really want some great graphics,
it is So fabulous.
Yeah, it is so fabulous. I love my Pinterest, so it's really great. But, what a beautiful conference that was, and just connecting with other parents, and just so many parents of it was a homeschooling conference, but
And
you know,
grandparents.
grandparents, so many grandparents, but who wanted information. And, the bulk of the homeschoolers were because they couldn't get proper education, and they just pulled their kids, and they also didn't want to see their kids, penalized for their differences. And they were just doing such an awesome job. And it was great. It was wonderful. And there were also a lot of professionals there as well,
Yes.
which was pretty darn cool. And they said to me, we can't get good information about educating, you know, kids that are learning, in different ways. And I thought, gosh, that's so sad. But I know that's true. And you are so committed to going to these conferences, not just as a mom and a parent, but because you're really trying to, build these resources for Mad Charlie Inc. Because, your experience, let's talk a little bit about gaslighting, because I did a whole episode on it, but I just hear over and over and over again that parents are gaslighted about concerns. They're gaslighted about, concerns that they have, red flags, about therapies they want to try, diets they want to try. I mean, I talk about this because it's still so shocking to me. I had this wonderful mom. She was the mom that taught me about MTHFR and all this other stuff. This is a long time ago. And she said, my doctor actually said to me that nutrition doesn't make a difference. And I was like, well, what do you think about that? She was like, I left him. And I thought, gosh, how could a pediatrician tell you that nutrition doesn't make a difference? I mean,
Well,
it's a pediatrician for crying out loud.
I want to share, because this is a big part of the gaslighting that can happen for a family. And you said it, and it was one of my lightning moments where I was like, I'm in love with this woman. Because when you were speaking and at the conference that I had attended, one of the things that you said when you were tackling nutrition, you did it in such a different way. You did not say, this is what you should do. And here's, as a parent, I'm going to tell you how it feels, because I am very much, as a family, we are very much in the functional medicine realm, but we also sit over here in the allopathic medicine realm for many things as well. And you have to find what works for your family, or nothing is going to work at all. So,
I mean, absolutely.
period.
And your family has to get in mostly alignment for it to work. And I
Absolutely.
think that's a major challenge that couples are not not on the same page at all. In fact, can be quite in conflict over this. And that's just
Absolutely.
another reason why parents get immobilized, because they're not getting support.
And so one of the things that you had said that hit, it was like an arrow to my heart, because I just thought, this woman, she's the real deal, and she sees me. And I'm just one of many sitting in the crowd, right? But I felt this practitioner sees me. She wants to know my lived experience. She gets it. She's listening. She's hearing us. Because you did want to speak on the importance of nutrition, nutritional deficiencies, food. But the way you opened that up was to say, this is the hardest place. This is the hardest one. And you said it is easier to change people's religions than it is to change their diet. And I was like, oh, I felt that.
It is the truth. I mean, for all the people that work with
Hard.
me one-on-one, they often begrudgingly do it, or they tell me, we waited to come in here because we listened to the show and we heard, that you're going to do it. And, it's just part of brain health, whether, you can either see it as a problem or you can see it as a solution. It's a perspective shift. And we have so much power in our perspective, and yet we get stuck in the no.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'll have people with much more severe issues with a child, but their perspective is so different around the problem, and they will make so much farther progress, where other times, and it's okay, people, you are where you are. These are enlightening conversations. I don't want you to feel ashamed. I want you to go, wow, You mean how I perceive things, my mindset can have a dramatic impact on my child's mental health? Heck yeah. And that's scary for people because we bring a lot of our family learnings with us, right? How do we learn to parent? From our parents. I mean,
Mhm.
some of us have had trauma and so there's work that has to be done internally too. And just changing shifts in perspective, right? And you can do that very easily by I mean, it's hard work, but you can start visualizing things. You can start making affirmations. Everybody in our program gets an affirmation. They get
Mhm.
their own individual affirmation for what they need. And I remind them of that too. So, I always talk about, you remember Saturday Night Live, and I think it was Dana Carvey, and he used to stand in front of the mirror and be like, gosh darn it, I'm beautiful. I'm this, I'm that. Those are positive affirmations. I
They
think it was
are.
called positive
Yeah.
affirmations. And our brain will believe it what we tell it, right? So when we say, "Oh, this kid's never gonna get better. Oh, this solution's never gonna happen." That's what's gonna happen, people.
Yeah. I
But if
mean,
you're
going
like, "Wow,
in,
I can't wait for the behaviors to decrease because I'm doing X, Y, and Z." Please don't think you can just pray about it or wish it. You have to actually do something. But
absolutely. So
right?
yeah, absolutely. So for finding the Dr. Roseannes of the world in the scope of neurodivergence, neurodiversity, and that could be everything from autism, ADHD, pandas, all the way into trauma, because our brains work differently with trauma. And we have a wide range of this in our own home, whether it's a hereditary neurodivergence or it's an acquired neurodivergence. We've got it in our home. But it sure took a long time for us to understand exactly what that was, to a point that we could confidently talk about it with our own friends and family. And then it took us even longer to understand how we were going to even approach it. But we wouldn't have been able to do that had we just kept reading all of the books and going into this analysis paralysis. I mean, it's wonderful that that I can be guided to or read a book about academic application, but it does me no good if I don't understand the practical application to bring home for my family. If I don't understand that, oh, I have to be calm first. So the skills that my 7-year-old is being taught, who has no executive function skill whatsoever, but he's supposed to go in and know how to come out of this 30-minute session, being able to to access these skills when I wasn't present to learn them either, is crazy. But that's what the system sent us through for years and years and years, and tens of thousands of dollars over
Yeah.
these years.
Yeah,
um,
it's shocking. I mean, how much I talk about dysregulation of the nervous system, and people are really honing in on that, as you did, because we all know we're stressed,
mhm,
and we're not teaching mental health professionals, medical professionals are not teaching parents, and parents, when they know better, they can do better. And unless we teach them this, we're only pushing talk therapy and pharma. That is
right.
9 times out of 10 what you're going to get. And then when you crack open the door, right, the Pandora's box, all of a sudden you realize, wow, there's actually a lot here, that I can do. And how come I didn't know about it? Right. Then we become suspicious of
Yeah.
of things like nutrition and supplements and things like that, because they're like, well, my regular pediatrician didn't tell me. Well, your regular pediatrician isn't a curious researcher.
Right. Exactly. So out of this, we're doing the first, we've been in community for a long time. We go to local farmers markets. I have conversations with families every single day. And then I just send them links. I'm like, start here. This, after having this conversation, I think this, could be a really good, set of
Angela, when
information or
you
set of,
when you're talking to people, right, and you're out and about as a mom, you're in the farmers market, what are the biggest things people are talking to you about?
lack of support, feeling alone, not knowing what to do, trying to find the resources. And here's the deal. Here's what no practitioner has ever said to me in the first 9 years of this journey, was that I am the best resource. I'm the
You
mom.
are, sister.
My husband is the best resource. He's the dad. There is no higher credential than MOM and DAD. And that's what we learned out of this. So Mad Charlie Inc. is all about putting caregivers and parents back in the driver's seat. We have to be back in the control seat. And I feel, over the last few decades, we have been made to slowly feel like we don't belong there and that we're supposed to listen to all these other practitioners, these experts on how to do it. But a 30 to 90-minute session with an expert is not going to do it. And then sometimes the expert just
30, 90 minutes, not unless you're coming to me, it's 10 minutes.
Right. 15 minutes for most hospital bases. 15 minutes is the rotation time that they get with patients. And that's the set standard.
I mean, there's no way you can glean, what is going on in 15 minutes. You can't.
Yeah. So, but that's how the system is set up. So we have to find a way to navigate the system and navigate outside of the system. And we have to take control and realize that we actually are the best resource. We as parents, we as caregivers deserve to be educated first and foremost so that we can properly drive that vehicle, which is regulation for our children, which is guiding our children, which is helping the practitioners understand, what's really happening. School-based supports is probably one of the most difficult to come by. I'll never forget
what
to
do like there, because they don't even know how to access it. Angela, when they're coming to you and they're talking, right? And this is why you developed Mad Charlie Inc. But, where do people start, in your opinion, right? I have my own opinion. Where do people start when they're starting to realize, A, my kid might have a problem, or B, my kid's got a problem and I've tried a lot? What should be their first step?
I think there's a lot of first steps that any family can take. I think connecting to a community of people that have already gone through what they're starting, that journey that they're starting, connect with community. And that's what we want to start, because it's like you're chasing your tail. You're in this analysis paralysis trying to figure it out. And, you have this vision of what parenthood is going to look like. And when you have a child that has different needs, all of that kind of gets swept under the rug. It's a whole new ball game. And I don't think there is one starting space. I think if I have to bring it down to one, it would be connecting to community, connecting to people who are going through the same
I actually love that, because I think, as we talked about so much here, is that it's so isolating. Anybody who follows me, my best friend left me because of my kids, which she really wasn't my best friend. But she pretended like she was for many, over a decade. And I'm Italian. We are friends forever. It's the way it works. You stick with your people through hard times. That's what people who really love and accept you. But obviously that doesn't happen to everybody, but it happens a lot. I mean, when I talk to a lot of mothers, they're like, oh, I heard you, in my book about dysregulation, I'm planning on opening on a deeper level about the bitches on the bus stop. My story.
I love this. I love this story.
Because, for me, that was really about fear of being judged, fear that something really was different with my kid. It was about being accepted and not being accepted. There were just so many things. And I think it's just it's the epitome of the experience that we have. And, every once in a while I meet somebody who has a tribe and they help each other out. And that's why I think when you say getting a community and really getting into a place where you're getting accurate information and you're not you talked about your well-meaning friends and relatives. And thank you for acknowledging that it was out of love. They come at you with all these ideas because they want to help. They don't know either.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes they judge the behavior as purposeful. And I think that's one of the hardest things. Oh, if you just discipline, oh, if you just spank, oh, if you just do this. I mean, these are real conversations that people have. So I love that coming to community. And that's why you created, Mad Charlie Inc. And not just because I'm a part of it, but I'm excited to be a part of it. I'm in this conversational course series where I'm going to talk about rethinking ADHD. And you can go to madcharlieinc.com or Mad Charlie Inc. anywhere on any of the socials and register for this really awesome. And it's really a conversation about both natural and allopathic solutions, which you often don't hear me be a part of.
Right.
But I think there are many paths and, to getting better. And there is bio-individual approach because there isn't one reason why there's ADHD. It's not 100% genetics. There's not 100% genetics to autism or and people have different kinds of trauma, and pandas has different reasons, and OCD starts for different reasons. So I think that's hard for parents to wrap their mind around because they look for the thing, but really, getting an all-encompassing approach. And for you, I mean, you found a team of people to really help you, Angela, and that's when it became the shift, right?
Absolutely. And going from, allopathic to functional medicine and everything in between, there's a or you could even say, holistic medicine, right? So
Yeah.
the big gap between allopathic and holistic medicine, functional medicine sits right here in the middle for the most part. It's
Yeah.
utilizing the strengths of both, but really getting at root cause. Well, sometimes you have to have allopathic medicine to bridge that gap.
Absolutely.
Cause. And so we want people to, it's not Mad Charlie Inc. is not telling people what to do. We are not reinventing the wheel in any way. What we're doing is we want to bring families all of the information up front, all of the resources that we gather. We want to continue growing that
with different voices.
We're vetting these
people that are curious, that are staying on top of the research and supporting kids and families,
Absolutely. So it's fun because we have 17 experts and resources, and we're going to have a community to go with it. And we're going to have these experts on for live Q&A. Everybody from your pediatrician, because that's your first line defense, through neuropsychologists. I have multiple psychologists. Some are specific to education. We have functional medicine providers that are giving us more of that holistic viewpoint, that root cause portion, particularly within nutrition. And then we go into school supports. We go into what's happening on the backside with school psychologists. Then we come in, we're really teaching about what special education is there for, where our role as parents are at that table, which is the head of the table. We are the CEOs at the IEP table, but nobody ever told me that. So we're
and once you learn those skills, and particularly in the schools, it was pretty transformative what you could get for your child, right?
It was incredible.
Yeah.
It wasn't just what we could get, it was what we could initiate in collaboration with the school. And that's what was so cool about it. But sometimes you need an advocate. Sometimes even if I'm so sorry, my computer's, that was awful. There we go. My son was beaming right into the camera lens.
That's okay.
So even if even if you're a well-versed IEP advocate, sometimes you need an advocate at the table. For me, I'm highly emotional when I sit at the IEP table. We're talking about my child and his access to education. And 1 year we had over 20 IEP meetings in 1 year.
Oh, Lordy.
Unheard of. So, all of these things, then we go into incredible community resources. We go into tech resources. These are the resources that are free, in the palm of your hand kind of resources. And you're just not going to see them on page 1 or 2 of Google just yet, but they are there. So we are searching the resources, and then we want to gather the families together. And it is conquering the maze ADHD. There's a lot of there's a lot of navigating this and navigating that. I am done navigating this. I mean business. We are going to conquer our way to joy and thriving. Period.
Well, I'm excited for this. I love that you're calling it a conversational course series, right? It's a digestible series of webinars, really, educational, instruction by different professionals and really addressing the most common concerns and questions parents have. And it's a real opportunity to learn, empower yourself, but then get the resources to take action. Because right? You got to take action. You can't just talk about it. Well, this is an awesome conversation. And again, you can go to madcharlieinc.com or madcharlieinc anywhere on socials to register for this Conquering the Maze series. And thank you for all of your work. We literally were talking an hour before this,
We were.
for a full hour.
Well, and I can't thank you enough for giving, Mad Charlie Inc. a voice and a platform to share this. It means a lot to us. We want things to be parent led. And it is hard to get yourself out there. So I appreciate
it's really hard. And I know all the parents that are listening are appreciating, because this is an important conversation. And, it's about not getting gaslighted, listening to your mother's gut, and finding those resources that are going to help your child thrive. So thank you for this conversation. And I hope everybody is tuning in to the Conversational Course series, and we'll see you over there.
Thanks, Dr. Roseanne.